I've been asked multiple questions about cyclamen dormancy over the last year, so this video is dedicated to the topic. I'm talking about houseplant cyclamen, florist cyclamen, not hardy cyclamen that can take a frost and usually grow outside in temperate regions. These are indoors. These are mostly cyclamen persicum hybrids. They're tender, they won't survive frost and naturally go dormant through the summer, not through the winter, which is of course when they come into bloom, and one of the reasons we love them so much, and that's what makes them so sought after, as they provide much needed colour and life throughout the most miserable and dull months of the year. Mine always look great from autumn through to spring. So now it's mid-August here, midsummer in the UK, and my cyclamen plants are in their natural dormant period. So what do dormant cyclamen plants actually look like? Well, these are what you'd probably expect to see. Totally dry, dead looking tubers under a bench in the shade, barely getting any water and just resting. All the tubers are firm, squishy ones are truly dead, and you might as well throw those out if you've got any like that. But hang on, because not all cyclamen tubers will be in this state, and this is where the questions arise. So let's think about this. In nature, a cyclamen tuber will be growing in a pine forest or a shrubby area in the hotter Mediterranean or African countries, like countries of Turkey, Tunisia, some areas of Greece and so on. So during the hot, dry summers, they go completely dormant. Too hot to grow, not enough water. So they survive as tubers, but their roots may be able to get down to some moisture, just enough to keep them from drying out completely. And of course, the trees and shrubs may offer some shady protection from the hot sun. So we want to replicate that as much as we can. A pot doesn't allow for any reaching of the roots to get at some moisture, so I like to give them a trickle, just enough, a tiny little bit of water, just to prevent total desiccation in the pot. If the media contracts away from the sides of the pot, then I think it needs some moisture just to prevent that. I don't mean you water it profusely. So here in my greenhouse, they actually get the hot temperatures through the summer. You know, it's glass, it gets sun on it, which tricks them into thinking that they're back home. I shade them as much as I can to replicate the leaves on the trees and the shrubs, and just give them that very small amount of water every month or so, sometimes a little bit longer depending on what they look like. So let's get back to the question, the main questions about what they should look like during dormancy, because mine don't all look like these here. Some of them have very small leaves emerging. Some of them, as you can see, have larger leaves, and some of them are still trying to bloom. So why is this? Well, commercial hybrids are artificially brought into bloom at different times of the year, and this is true of many houseplants, not just cyclamen. Assuming you've provided the conditions we've talked about, they still might be reluctant to go into dormancy naturally. This is because of this artificial condition that they've been kept in. You might just decide to keep them going until they give up by themselves. They're certainly not expensive plants over here. And I've certainly heard of some plants blooming perpetually for years in that way. Not many, just a few unique little incidences of this. But personally, I like the seasonality of them, and I think that having them bloom continually month after month, year round, would reduce their value and beauty in my eyes. Who'd want, for example, a cherry tree or a magnolia in bloom all year round? So in late spring, I reduce the watering and place them somewhere darker. And for the most part, they naturally begin to die back and the leaves turn yellow, which I cut off. This results in the dry looking tubers you've seen. But what about these stubborn ones? These that simply don't want to go into dormancy? Well, I don't worry about them. I simply stop watering them completely. And believe me, without water, they get the message eventually. I'm happy to leave them in this state, somewhere warm, but shady all through the summer. They're still getting a rest. Dormancy doesn't have to look like a total lack of growth. In my experience, cyclamen can sit quite happily like this with small leaves or even trying to bloom, just kind of suspended and living off whatever the tuber is provided. It's like a suspended animation, and they can stay like this for months and months. I simply leave them like that till the autumn, and then I do the reverse. I increase the watering, I bring them into the lightest part of the greenhouse, and away we go again. I found that the very small plants, often known as mini-Cyclamen, are practically impossible to take through dormancy, as their tubers are just too immature. They're artificially induced into flower when they're simply not mature enough to do so naturally, so treat them as cheap throwaway plants. So I hope that clears a few things up. I've only just returned from Dubai, which is a desert, so it's lovely to feel the warm embrace of greenery and smell the plants and the blooms again. So if you're interested in houseplant cyclamen, there really is only one care video you need to watch, and that's this one. I'll see you on the next one. Bye!